The list of the most famous people wouldn't be complete without Sir Isaac Newton. Hey friends, this is Kaushik Reddy from digital.KasturiVijayam. In this video, I am gonna talk about the Lusanian professor of mathematics, Sir Isaac Newton. This video is brought to you by KasturiVijayam and I will speak more about them later in this video. Without wasting any more time, let's dive into Sir Isaac Newton's biography. Sir Isaac Newton was a superstar of physics, math and astronomy even in his own time. He occupied the chair of the Lusanian professor of mathematics at the University of Cambridge in England. The same role later filled centuries later by Stephen Hawking. Newton conceived of several laws of motion, influential mathematical principles which to this day scientists use to explain how the universe works. Early life and influences. Newton was born in 1642 in a manor house in Lincolnshire, England. His father had died 2 months before his death, and when Newton was 3 years old, his mother remarried, which made him remain with his grandmother, and he was not interested in the family farm, so he was sent to Cambridge University to study. Newton was born just a short time after the death of Galileo, one of the greatest scientists of all time. Galileo had proved that the planets revolve around the sun, not the earth as people thought at that time. Newton was very interested in the discoveries of Galileo and others. Newton thought that the universe worked like a machine and that had a few laws governing it. Like Galileo, he realized that mathematics was the way to explain and prove those laws. Laws of motion. Newton formulated laws of motion and gravitation. These laws are math formulas that explain how objects move when a force acts upon them. Newton published his most famous book, Principia, in 1687 while he was a mathematics professor at Trinity College in Cambridge. In Principia, Newton explained 3 basic laws that govern the way objects move. He also described his theory of gravity, the force that causes things to fall down. Newton then used these laws to show that the planets revolve around the sun in orbits that are oval, not round. The 3 laws are often called Newton laws. The first law states that an object that is not being pushed or pulled by the same force will stay still or will keep moving in a straight line at steady speed. For example, if someone is riding a bike and jumps off before the bike is stopped, what happens? The bike continues until it falls over. The tendency of an object to remain still or keep moving in a straight line at steady speed is called inertia. The second law explains how a force acts on an object. An object accelerates in the direction of the force moving. If someone gets on a bike and pushes the pedal forward, the bike will begin to move forward. If someone gives the bike a push from behind, the bike will speed up. If the rider pushes back on the pedal, the bike will slow down. If the riders turn the handlebars, the bike will change direction. The third law states that if an object is pushed or pulled, it will push or pull equally in the opposite direction. If someone lifts a heavy box, they use force to push it up. The box is heavy because it's producing an equal force downward on the lifter's arm. The weight is transferred through the lifter's legs to the floor. The floor also presses upward with an equal force. If the floor pushed back with a lesser force, the person lifting the box will fall through the floor. If it pushed back with more force, the lifter would fly in the air. Importance of gravity. When most people think of Newton, they think of him sitting under an apple tree observing an apple fall to the ground. When he saw the apple fall, Newton began to think about a specific kind of motion called gravity. Newton understood that gravity was a force of attraction between 2 objects. He also understood that an object with more matter or mass exerted the greater force or pulled smaller objects toward it. That meant that the large mass of Earth pulled objects toward it. That's why the apple fell down instead of going up, and that's why people don't float in the air. He also thought that maybe gravity was not just limited to the Earth and the objects on the Earth. What if gravity extended to the moon and beyond? Newton calculated the force needed to keep the moon moving around the Earth. Then he compared it with the force that made the apple fall downwards. After allowing for the fact that the moon is much further from the Earth and has much greater mass, he discovered that the forces were the same and that the moon is also held in orbit around the Earth by the Earth's gravity.
So friends, have you ever wondered about the Indian history? I'm sure you have at some point of your life. Well, KasturiVijayam has that covered for you. They have published a new book called The Thoughts, a journey of 7 generations worldwide. The details of this book is in the description below, and we have pinned it in the comments also. Do check it out now.
Dispute in later years and death. Newton moved to London in 1696 to accept the position of Warden of the Royal Mint. For many years afterward, he argued with Robert Hooke over who actually discovered the connection between elliptical orbits and the inverse square law, a dispute that ended only with Hooke's death in 1703. In 1705, Queen Anne bestowed a knighthood upon Newton, and thereafter he was known as Sir Isaac Newton. He continued his work partially in mathematics. This led to another dispute in 1709, this time with German mathematician Gottfried Leibniz. They both quarreled over which one of them invented calculus. One reason for Newton's dispute with other scientists was his overwhelming fear of criticism, which led him to write but then postpone publication of his brilliant article until after another scientist created a similar work besides his earlier writings, the Annales, which didn't see publication until 1711, and Principia, published in 1687. Newton's publications include Optics, published in 1704, and Universal Arithmetic, published in 1707, and Lentionis Optica, published in 1729, and the Method of Fluctuations, published in 1736, and the Geometria Analytica, published in 1779. On March 20, 1727, Newton died near London. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, the first scientist to receive this honor. His legacy. Newton's calculations changed the way people understood the universe. Prior to Newton, no one had been able to explain why the planets stayed in their orbits, what held them in place. People had thought that the planets were held in place by an invisible shield. Newton proved that they were held in place by the sun's gravity and that the force of gravity was affected by the distance and mass. While he was not the first person to explain that the orbit of the planet was elongated like an oval, he was the first to explain how it worked. Thank you for watching. I will see you in another video. Goodbye.